Good.
David Baldacci, damn, this is good. I'm excited. I am
Good to see
excited about this. I asked Stephen King, he didn't get back to me, but the heck.
you.
Is this your office?
Yeah, this is my office. Yes, Northern
Oh, it's
Virginia.
great looking.
Yeah,
Huh? It's great. It's great. It's great.
hey, you too. How are you doing?
Good. Good. Yeah, we're up in New York, up the Hudson River a little bit.
Nice.
That way. Yeah, it's like 2.5 miles wide here. It's beautiful. And when Rockefeller's place is that away, and he bought all the land across the river, and he never wanted anything built on. He gave it to New York State, but he said you can't build anything. So from where we are, I see nothing but mountains, which is very cool. So anyway, my grandmother, who was great, she had a thing, hungry dogs run faster, just kind of driven me. And she said, you can kind of accomplish anything you want to. You're not going to play in the NBA, so get that out of your head. But some other stuff you could do, and most important, she believed in me. Who believed in you along the way?
Yeah, well, certainly my parents did. I mean, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, right in the middle of segregation and Jim Crow, and I could have turned out very differently. But the magic formula for my family is they took me and my siblings to the library every week, and so I got to travel the world with
Uh-huh.
a plane or a passport. And that really changed my whole life. And my mom gave me a journal when I was 7 or 8 years old to write down some of my stories. And, like you, I grew up in limited economic means, but that's sometimes give you a belly fire that you
Uh-huh.
want to do great,
Uh-huh.
greater
Uh-huh.
things and
Yeah,
move on.
also, I think it helps your understanding too of people. If you've had yes, I didn't have much money in the beginning and in the middle and whatever. And you know where people are coming from, I think, a little better that way.
Yeah. But it's nice to have someone to believe in you, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, we're very lucky that way. Did you ever have people along the way who didn't believe in you,
Yeah,
your
of
writing or whatever the heck?
course. I mean, I spent 15 years writing short stories and, got crap in return, and not very much constructive criticism, just a lot of criticism.
Uh-huh.
But, you
Right. Form
know,
letters.
yeah, let those little wounds kill you or you keep moving forward. And I think both of us made the decision to keep moving forward.
Yeah. 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 No, somebody said you're lucky if you find something you like to do, and then it's a miracle if somebody will pay you to do it. So that's kind of been a little bit.
I
So
tell I tell writers all
yeah.
the time, when they're having bad days, I said, just take a step back and realize that you get paid to make shit up for a living. You know,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
how many people would love to do that?
Uh-huh. And they're nonfiction writers. The so Virginia and then Virginia Law School, which is I actually I picked between Vanderbilt and Virginia for grad school. I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why, because they really gave me money to go to Vanderbilt. So that was an easy pick.
I would have
No,
been.
actually, it wasn't an easy pick because I really liked the Virginia thing. You know what's interesting to me about the whole college admissions and whatever, and it's still this way up to a point. So much of it is about kids who retain information,
Mhm.
which ultimately isn't all that useful. It was really useful in the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
and now not so much. But how do whatever? Now you have kids and whatever, and off to school. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, what I learned, I loved going to law school because law school is all about solving problems and critical thinking.
Uh-huh.
And yeah,
Uh-huh.
we had to memorize a bunch of stuff. We all knew that was just for show. That was just to pass the bar exam and our school exams. But people came to lawyers because they were in trouble and they needed fixing and they needed solutions and needed to think how to get them through that. And I've used that in my life as a writer. I've used it in my life as a
Mhm.
business person, negotiating deals and contracts with lots of people. I've used those same skills. And I think a lot of writers shy away from that. They don't like to get into the business part of it. And
Uh-huh.
look, no one will care more about your career than you.
That's for sure.
So you
That's
need,
for sure. Well, and you mentioned just that phrase, solving problems.
yeah,
And that's a huge thing, I think, no matter what it is, whether it's your life, your kids, your spouse, and certainly in the book, it's the same thing. I
yes.
mean, it's always just here's a problem. For example, when I brought out my autobiography, I said to Little Brand, who the hell wants to read about me? I mean, that's the problem. That's the problem to solve, and don't not so knowingly when I say that, but no, but it's true. It's true,
I
100%.
can do this too.
No, but it is, and it's and then we were fortunate enough to get some quotes, and I don't know these people, but and they were really like Bob Woodward said one, and it was really I don't know Bob, but it was the coolest quote, and you could tell this is a real quote. He's not like searching for a couple of adjectives or whatever. So boom, absolute power. Yikes, holy mackerel, and what did that do to you?
It changed everything. It changed the whole future of my life. It gave me the
Mhm.
opportunity to write fiction instead of being a lawyer the rest of my life. And I mean, it was surreal. And
Mhm.
I was just overnight success after 5,000 nights, but that's, I'll take,
Uh-huh.
I'll take it.
Uh-huh.
People were throwing money at me. I didn't even know who they were or what it was for, but it allowed
Uh-huh.
me to, for the first time in my life, be able to write full time, and not.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah. There was the first book. I was a little luckier with the first book, and then it took me a while to really get going. But John D. MacDonald, he sent a quote, and it was, I'm quite sure, I was 26 at the time. He said, I'm quite sure James Patterson has written 1,000,000 words before he started uh, the Thomas Behrman number,
Yeah.
which wasn't accurate, but it was close.
Yeah.
It was
No.
close. So interestingly, with Absolute Power, actually, Larry Kirschbaum, who was a brilliant, he could really find good people. I mean, he found you, I think. He found Nick Sparks. He found me basically, and but he sent me your book in I think it might have just been manuscript even before ARC. And I read the first couple of chapters. I remember exactly one or two, whatever it was, and I went, "Yes, this." If, in my opinion, not that it didn't matter, but I mean, but he did. He was curious about how I would respond.
No.
He sent me Sparks too, the notebook, and I said, "Yep, I'm not necessarily a romance reader, but I think this thing is a really this guy can tell a story."
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. Was there aren't many Larrys left, ones who can really
Uh-huh.
spot new talent coming up, and that's what the
Yeah,
industry.
yeah,
Well, I got to tell you, I will fan over you too. Along Came a Spider and was just blew me away, and I remember there was no picture on the back, and I was like, who the hell is this James Patterson guy?
uh-huh, uh-huh.
And
That
but
was
he
the
just
publisher, and I think they were being a little sneaky there, but yeah,
I get it. I mean,
yeah,
I totally, but again, it was a great story. And that's what people want. I mean, they don't necessarily care about how fine the language is and all that, but they want to just lose themselves in something.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we're losing that a little bit too in terms of the publishing. But and one of the things about Larry and at that time, the guy I'm blanking on his name, but the guy that ran Simon and Schuster, they were both good spokespeople. They got out there, they made some noise about books, and we need that. We need people. I mean, they obviously in the movie business they do it like crazy,
Yeah,
but the books need that desperately.
they
You
do.
know, there's a phrase out there which I just curious about how you feel about it, which is they'll talk about some books as guilty pleasures,
Yeah.
which which I don't buy into that. But how do you feel about that?
I feel like that the same way when people come up to me and say, how do you keep cranking these books out? And I'm like, you
Yeah,
crank when you're making buttermilk. You don't crank when you're writing a book. That
right.
bo-
Prolific, another one of my least favorite words.
right, right. Those phrases bother me. And but
Yeah.
I try to dispense with them, not think about them and just move on,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think I to me, especially as we right now, and maybe this will be the future. Somebody goes to the bookstore. I want to put a star on their head. If they go to a library, put another star. They're reading a book, put a star on there. This is good stuff. You should never feel guilty about that.
no, I
And also the notion of like, okay, well, somebody, some people may have a different soap opera that they like to read, and maybe it's the people are a little bit more, and that's fine. That's okay. I mean, highbrow soap operas.
yeah, but
Uh,
you can create a reader and you have no idea where that reader's going to go after the first day, after the first book. And people talk about, well, a lot of these books are getting popular on TikTok, and I'm like, that's great. The more people
yeah,
read books,
100%.
better for
It
all.
is good. It
Yeah.
is good. It is good. As you know, because I sent you a note about Calamity Souls, which I love. I
Yes.
really, really, and I guess that takes you talking earlier about your experience growing up, and what was going on at that period. But I loved that. I thought it was a great story. It was really moving. The characters are terrific, and I like the 620 Man a lot too. I mean, I'm just picking those two as more recent. And you have another 620 Man coming out soon, right?
Yes. Yeah, in November, To Die For. That'll be the third one.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, thank you. I appreciate it. They were two very different books, but books that, I felt really compelled to write, particularly
Uh-huh.
Calamity.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, had you been toying around with Calamity for a while, or
Yeah,
something about it, or the area?
over a decade. My wife brought me a journal for Christmas in 2011, and I went to my little home office and wrote A Calamity of Souls, and I started to write the book. I wrote the first 150 pages by hand in that journal, and then set it aside for years.
Hmm.
I would go back to it and read it, and like, I'm never going to finish this book. And then, like the last 5 or 6 years, I thought, well, I think this book is still relevant, so let's have a go at it, and finished it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm glad I got the.
Peer approval, whatever, another writer, like every once in a while I'll send a note to Grisham, every once in a while. But I mean, does that mean anything to you?
No, it does. Yeah, absolutely does.
Uh-huh.
Look, it's a competitive business. We all know that. But it's nice to get a pat on the back sometimes from people you respect too, like
Hmm.
anything else. If I were a football player and I got, a note from somebody in the Hall of Fame, I would go,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay.
good day.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I could go for that. I spent a little time with Steph Curry. That was nice.
Yes, I'm sure.
A little mixed thing there. What about, you mentioned competition? Are you competitive with authors, or
Probably I was more so
are
earlier
we
on.
competitors, David?
Yeah. No, we are comrades.
All right. That's right. That's right.
Um, but not as much as I used to be. Although, there are some writers out there who are still, I feel like they're really competitive. But then when you actually sit down and you get to know them, talk to them, you have a good time, you have the same war stories you can tell. You have that
Uh-huh.
experience that's similar, and things are good. I think more writers should get together more often, actually.
Uh-huh. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's going to be a fun thing, because I'm going to do a batch of these. I did Ellen Hildebrand, and I did TJ
Nice.
Newman. I'm going to do, I think, President Clinton and Hillary somewhere along the way. So it'll be fun and interesting. We'll try to keep it short, and no curveballs, no
Yeah.
sliders, nothing nasty, no politics. Which brings me to the notion of the haters. Do they ever hurt your feelings, or you just kind of go like, "Oh, yeah, whatever"?
Yeah, I'm at the no, what I don't really care stage, in my
Uh-huh.
career at this point.
Uh-huh.
Why in the world would I listen to somebody I don't even know who they are or where they're coming,
Uh-huh.
their agenda is? Life is too
Yeah.
short for that crap.
Well, at least we sign our stuff. They don't even sign it. I'd have a little bit more respect if they signed it, put their phone number so we could call them up.
Yeah, exactly. And their address would be even better.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's right. Here's a little letter for you. So I'm sure you get asked about it a lot, so we'll try to some little spin on it. But um, now, and one thing I read somewhere is that sometimes when you're cruising toward the end of a book, you'll do really long days, 10, 12 hours, 15 hours, whatever. Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah. Yeah, you get really immersed in it, and there's like this hunger to get to the end. You get everything in your head you want to get out. And sometimes I'll write a pen ending, and I'll send it up and let them know, and they know this is not going to be the real ending. I'm still working on it. I just want to get down.
Right. Uh-huh. Okay. Uh-huh.
And you go back and sort of, finesse it a little bit more.
That's sort of like saying this doesn't work, but trust me, don't worry. I'll do something better. Uh-huh.
I will get there. Yes.
Do you usually know what like, obviously not all the time, but do you usually know what the ending's going to be, or you think you do? No. Okay.
I've tried outlining, and it just doesn't work for me because I just end up
That's
throwing it out.
interesting. Okay.
You know, I know, and look, I know you're an outliner, and that works
I
great for
am.
those who do it.
Yeah.
For me, not so much. I'm just so
Uh-huh.
I write better in the trenches when I'm actually in the middle of something, and I seem to make better
Uh-huh.
decisions. But I tell people, look, you can outline, you can change. You don't have to stick to the same protocol throughout your entire career. Whatever works
Yeah.
best at that moment in time. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I'm not a slave to the outline, but I do like the outline. I like when I sit down that there's, okay, in theory, this is what I was supposed to write about today for
there you go.
me.
Yeah.
I think for some people it's really useful, and obviously Finnegan's Wake. I don't think if he had an outline, that's an outline I'd like to see, right? So years back, this is kind of funny thing. I think I was in Rome. It might have been Milan. I go into a bookstore there and I see one of your books because I recognize the cover. And I go, what the hell? Somebody totally ripped him off. Is this guy David Ford?
Yeah.
So tell us about that little sucker.
Yeah, so I was at home. My agent called and said, I got your Italian publishers, Mondadori. They love Absolute Power. It's going to be a great novel for them, but they have a problem with the name. I thought he meant the title of the book. But apparently, Italians don't want to read books written by other Italians, particularly thrillers. They want to.
Okay.
So I had, and they wanted an American name, and I didn't know what the hell that meant. And I looked out the window and I said, at the car that was parked in our driveway, and they said, okay, how about David Ford? Because we had a Ford back then. And
Uh-huh.
wow, that sounds American. So the Italians loved it. They thought it was genius. So I was David Ford for a couple of books, and I was David B. Ford and David Baldacci Ford, and then David Baldacci. And I tell people later on, I think,
Thank God it wasn't a Maserati. It would have
oh
been the
no,
same
no,
problem.
I just sold a Subaru. You know, I just had a Subaru that I got married. You know,
Uh-huh.
David Subaru probably wouldn't have cut it.
I don't get that. You get these weird things like people driving Maserati SUVs. What is that? That's like weird to me. Why would you
I've
a
seen
Maserati station wagon?
I've seen
I'm confused.
I've seen the Lamborghini SUV, and again, like, what's the point? Um,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess that maybe they're really fast.
I guess so. You know, if you want to spend $1 million on an SUV.
The speaking of Italy, at a certain point you went to the town where your grandfather grew up, right? So what happened there?
Yeah, it was supposed to just be lunch with the mayor, and we had some friends who were traveling with us, and we got there, and it was like bedlam, and there was posters of me all over the walls, and it turned out it was David Baldacci Day, and my wife was furious because she thought it was supposed to be lunch, and we were there all day, and I mean, it was
Uh-huh.
quite surreal, and gifts, and I had to give a grand speech that I had not prepared, of course, for, and but I did get to see where my grandfather, was born and grew up, and that was amazing.
Do you
And
speak any Italian?
no,
No.
because my father didn't, because we're in America now, so
Right.
that was a terrible, misfortune. I would have loved that. Although my daughter now, she's trilingual, Spanish and Italian. But I
Oh, really?
yeah. So
So you have a son and a daughter?
yep, yep,
So it's an interesting thing for well-known parents or famous parents or whatever in terms of how the kids deal with that.
yep.
How do your kids deal with that? How have they dealt with it?
Well, when my daughter was in high school and then college and then out in the world, she just never talked about me. And if anybody brought up the name, she would be like, "Yeah, I think he's a distant relative." Um,
Uh-huh. Okay. It's proud of you. Good. Excellent.
So that's and I totally get it. They can. It's not like, we're not movie stars and athletes. It's sort of like we have this anonymity. We're anonymous celebrities, in
Yeah, a
America
bit.
for the
A
most
bit.
part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
love
was in
that.
an Italian restaurant in Florida with my place we go a fair amount. And table came in, a waiter walked us down the aisle, and this woman pops up and she goes, I know you. I know you. And you try to be nice and you go, you sold us our life insurance. And I'm like, oh, really? And she insisted. She wouldn't let go of that. It was an interesting thing. Hollywood, another interesting place.
Yeah.
We had one of my books and they were developing it. And the poor screenwriters, I mean, they give them like 15 pages of notes. And I mean, it's like totally. And then whatever this particular one, it was actually the Women's Murder Club. And one of the executives who was a bright person, he said, look, let me simplify this. Oh, God, thank God. Not for me, but for the screenwriter. And he said, look, make us love Lindsay Boxer, who's the lead character in that, and I'll greenlight it. And that's the kind of notes that I think are useful.
Oh yeah.
Big
Oh,
notes, not the little, we can get to those things. Okay, we got the time wrong and whatever the heck. But the big notes and some of these, you go in and you listen, and sometimes it makes me ill to listen to these things, the things you're talking to the screenwriters about, and there'll be like 12 people on the call and stuff. And you're like, really? Yeah, this is okay. This is why it's so expensive or whatever. So, what's your experience in Hollywood, though? So, Absolute Power, you do Clint Eastwood. That's interesting.
yeah, that was a bang to start off. That's when all the planets were in alignment for some odd reason. And ever since then, it's been a lot weirder and tougher and more frustrating. I mean, I have in the last year and a half, I've sold 5 projects to various ones, 2 at Netflix, 2 at Amazon, and 1 at NBC Universal. And we'll see if, and you know how this is, we'll see if any of them.
Uh-huh.
But what I try to do, because at the end of the day, any contract you sign is only worth whether you're actually willing to go to court and spend a lot of money on a lawyer to enforce it, right? So
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I sit down with the filmmakers and the writers before I agree to anything, before I sign a contract to get their take
Yeah.
on what they want to do. And if their
Uh-huh.
vision is not close to what I want, then I just walk away. But
Hmm.
then if it is, and I sign the deal, then I still kind of walk away. I'm still there to give the input and help however I
Yeah.
can. But they're going to do it, and I'm going to trust them to do it well. And if it gets made, it'll great. I don't obsess over this stuff anymore. It's apples and oranges, and
Yeah,
I
I don't, just because it's just you go crazy if you're gonna. I mean, I at a certain point, which we're not at, where it's like, oh my God, I really need this, to happen, really, really, really,
yeah,
and then I can, but it's just sort of a different thing now, and you get used to it, and you go, okay, fine, whatever. The new cross thing has been shot and tested for. So I know that that's a go
right,
in November. And we have actually a documentary on the terrible murders in Idaho, and that's shot and
right,
edited.
right.
So I believe in those.
Oh,
We
oh,
started The President is Missing, that a book I did with President Clinton. And we had shot and then COVID came. We shot 4 days and they never went back, and that was the end of it, that's the worst so far.
I
We
know.
shot 4 days and okay, that's over. Yeah.
I know. Well, you typically you think, okay, if they're actually out there shooting and it's been cast and they're on location doing it, but COVID blew everything up, and
Yeah.
then the writers and strikes
The
came on.
writer's strike. Yeah, yeah,
Then we have this, AI looming over all of us. What is that going to mean going forward in the future?
yeah.
I don't trust any of these tech guys to get this right, by the way. I think,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. The AI thing is such a mystery. The only thing I bring up with that, I can't remember the guy's name. He was one of the Eagles, well, not Henley or whatever, with the Eagles, and known as kind of a wild man. And they went to him and they asked him about what the effect would be on music. And he said, look, he said, until AI can come in there, wreck a hotel room, and throw the television out into the swimming pool, I'm not going to worry about it. Which was I like that answer, because it was like it's kind of a stupid question anyway, because we don't know.
no, we don't know.
And I love that answer. It was just such a great, wonderful answer. They always ask you about our charities, and I'm not going to do that other than your Wish You Well Foundation, which is a wonderful thing. But of course, we should be giving money away. Of course,
Yes.
we should. So
Yeah.
the end. I mean, yes, we do, and we should.
Yes.
Um, when I was a kid, growing up, it's a small town, and my grandfather used to, 1 day a week in the summer, take me on his delivery route, and we go over the Storm King route and on the way to West Point, and he had terrible voice, but he'd be singing at the top of his voice, "Oh Suzanne" and all whatever, put another nickel in the Nickelodeon, some songs like that. And he said to me, he said, Jim, I don't care what you do when you grow up, but just remember, when you go over the mountain to work in the morning, you got to be singing, And I do. Do you sing? Do you sing going over to work, the mountain to work?
Yeah, I sing a lot in the shower when I'm trying to, impress myself and no one else. But
Uh-huh.
I do,
Opera?
I do. No, I don't do opera, but I
All
do the
right.
stupid, silly songs. But as the years go by, I do really focus on all the positives, and not
Uh-huh.
negatives of life, and that makes getting through the days a lot better. If you have healthy kids and happy kids,
Yeah.
you're only as happy as your least happy child, which
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because they do dominate your thoughts. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to, focus more on all the positive stuff and let the negatives roll off because
I
uh,
agree. Some people think that's kind of simple-minded and shallow. To me, it's ridiculous to sit there and worry about stuff you can't do anything about. I
exactly
can't do anything about that. I'm just not going to let it consume me. I
right.
can't do anything.
Yeah,
I'd like to help, but I can't. So,
yeah. No,
um, that's kind of what I have. I hope this has been relatively easy.
oh, it has been
Uh,
great. It's good.
been
It's good.
fun for me.
Yeah, same here. I'm glad you're doing this. I mean, anything to get the word out with, writers and reading, and more people should be doing it. As we all know, more people read books, the better the world's going to be. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. I agree. To be able to think a little. We have literacy. I think with kids, I was thinking about something called thinkeracy, which is we're going to really make an effort to get them thinking past their first thought
Yeah.
in school. And for it to be, if I did teach, I think I would think every, what do you want to do after school? Oh, I don't know. Now you could play soccer, you could read a book, you could rob a liquor store, so many possibilities, and just getting people thinking past that first
Yeah.
thought or the blank page.
Yeah.
And for a lot of kids, it's getting past the blank page.
Yeah. It is.
Okay, now you see the blank page, there's nothing there. Let's write a letter on. Oh, A, okay, that's a good start. At any rate. All right, so good, good, good. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really fun for me, and I love your shirt.
Okay.
That's a cool shirt, man. That's a good, yeah, I
I like
like it.
that.
Huh? Yeah, P for Patterson, right? Also Penn, but whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is great.
Good. We'll have a good rest of the summer, Jim. Take care. Say hello to your wife
Yeah,
for me.
you too. Yeah,
Okay.
don't write too many books. Not
Okay.
that I'm competitive.